Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 2025 ION ESI broadcast, webcast, webinar, whatever you want to call it. This is our monthly webcast where we get together with True Staffing Partners. Jared is with us. And we talk about trends and happenings in the world of employment in electronic discovery. We've got a super special guest, my friend and colleague Rose Jones has joined us today from Graber's. I'm going to mispronounce the firm, but Rose can introduce.
Hilgers Graben.
Hilgers Graben. There you go. Let's get into it. Jared, what do we got cooking this month?
Oh man, we've got so much cooking this month. First of all, we've got Rose Jones cooking with us this month, so everyone should take advantage. Ask questions in the Q&A. We're going to leave a little bit of time at the end. We've got a wealth of data to share with everybody. The market is shifting very quickly beneath our feet, everybody, and it's starting to look like the 2021-2022 years in terms of demand, increase in compensation, increase in volume of jobs, increase in acceleration of skill set evolution and reinvention. So get your pencil sharpened. Here we go. This is where our data comes from. We are wrapping up 2024 metric numbers. You could see we represented nearly 2,000 unique and individuals out on job opportunities last year, and we received nearly 13,000 plus inbound unique resumes from ESI job seekers. That, in addition to all the other things that we're tracking, is where our data comes from. I know people have been asking that question, so here it is. We're in conversations with 400 plus hiring managers in any given quarter. So here's what we're finding from all this data. Next, let's start with, these are the hot jobs we're seeing. And as you can see, there's still a lot in the middle of the marketplace, right? We've got this job here in Dublin where they're willing to maybe relocate a US national or a national from somewhere in mainland Europe that has gotten a lot of attention. People certainly want to take advantage of visa sponsorship opportunities. But as you can see here, it's a lot of demand in the middle of the marketplace. I've been saying that now for months and months and months and months. And now we're starting to see salaries accelerate and the number of jobs accelerate because litigation demand is through the roof. So if you want to know more about these, contact Michael, contact Michelle. Michael's in the UK, Michelle's here in Atlanta. They're fabulous. They know everything. All right, next. Here are the true trends. Well, you've heard me say it a few times already, but we've seen a 3 times increase from December in the amount of jobs. And Rose, please validate for me that I'm just not whistling Dixie, and it is busier and there is more litigation than even a month ago, but certainly a year ago. And tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of where that demand lies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Mike and Jared and ACEDS. I love working with each of you. I have worked with Jared for a very long time. He helped me a long time ago, I think 2015, staff a review and project managers overseas in the EU where people thought it was going to be impossible. And we literally made it happen like within a week. And then the rest is history. And so Jared has just been a consummate partner and advisor to me over the years. And so he knows what he's talking about. The data of like what we do is growing significantly. I am surprised that it's only 3 times growth since December. We are seeing a significant shift in the litigation profiles. Anytime you have a change of administration, you're going to see a lot of litigation being filed. We're going to see with regulation going down in the federal government that the states are going to increase their regulation, right, with data privacy, with respect to generative AI. I mean, so what we're seeing is just a shift in the marketplace, and it's going faster than I actually expected. And so we're seeing a significant increase in our, for what we're seeing in our own law firm of our clients and their needs for us.
And it goes really nicely into bullet number 2 here, which is the speed is accelerating, right? We're going to show you a chart later. In fact, let's just skip to that really quick, MT. I know I'm going to go out of order here, but let's pop over to speed of hire. You could see just how rapidly it is accelerated from Q4 into January alone. We're essentially seeing all of a sudden a lot more jobs that are for management, or high-level paying PM jobs that are reaching the 200K mark. And you're seeing that the speed of those jobs is accelerating in terms of from the time we send a resume to the time somebody accepts a verbal offer. I mean, we have cut almost more than in half the speed from Q3 on executive level positions. That's because a lot more executive level positions have opened up in the last 60 days, and therefore competition has increased, and therefore speed has increased. But also the need for these leaders to step into these roles, whether they're on service providers that are directors of client service or C-suite level positions operationally, client service, product on the software side, we're seeing those jobs open up and get filled. And then on the project management side, which is mid-market, that dark black line, you could see it's gone from 65 to 60 to 45 and now 28 days, which essentially means you've got about a month from the time you start looking at candidates till they start getting other offers from other employers, and you risk losing your first choice candidate at the beginning of your search. We find that 87% of the placements we make come in the first wave of candidates that we send, which means that we're not just good at matching, but the clients are moving deliberately on that first wave and are feeling confident about making decisions in less than a month. So if your search is taking 90, 120 days, there's probably a variable, one of these metrics that we'll bring up that might need some adjustment in order for you to compete. It might be your speed. It might be your price and compensation bands. It might be your remote versus in office. It might be contract versus full-time. You could see here contracting is also now less than a week. It's really, these are business days, so like a week and a day. But essentially, we get an assignment, we're sending resumes within a day, they're making a decision before the end of that week. That's how fast that contract market moves, which also means people are coming and going off the market much faster than they were. All of this is going to accelerate all of the metrics, not the least of which is speed, but also compensation. I'll turn to Rose, who sort of already set the stage for this, and then we'll go back to trends. And you know, in terms of speed, how does a hiring manager like yourself compete for speed? What are some of the things that are keys to success in moving quickly?
Well, I think you need to be sure that you're working with the right partner who's bringing the talent to you and understands your need. First, they need to understand your need, and then they can bring the right talent to you. And then I think in this hiring market, you need to be able to move quickly. You need to be able to get the interview process handled expeditiously. So from my perspective, I don't want to just have like one person interviewing a potential hire. I want 3, 4, maybe even 5 of my team members to make sure that they're a right fit. I love my new firm.
On the same call.
On the same call, but also sometimes individual calls, right? Like we have a no jerks policy at Hilgers Graben. And so, you know, I got to make sure that it's a right fit for the culture of what we're trying to build. And that is massively important, is the culture. Do they have the skill sets that we're looking for specifically? And so, yeah, it's just really a matter of really understanding the need that you have, partnering with the right team to bring those resources to you, and then acting very quickly with respect to the interview process, so you can get that offer on the table if it's the right fit.
Yeah, I would add to that, look for the outliers in the interview process. I know this isn't a problem for Rose currently, but look for those outliers who are dragging the process down. Sometimes there's that one stakeholder who delays things a week or two, and it causes the entire interview cycle potentially to not derail. But what you may risk now is you're not the candidate's first choice. And we are 100% moving into a candidate's job market again. It is not going to be an e-discovery employer's job market. The employers have had it for 2 years. The candidates had it the 2 years prior. That pendulum is swinging. And as those of you who've heard me speak know, I'm a big believer that our economy and the trends in our economy, and e-discovery is a big enough microcosm of that to be affected by what is happening at a macro level, swings every 2 years. It used to be 10, right? Recession of the 70s, huge buildup through the 80s, minor collapse during Desert Storm, hyper-acceleration Clinton, dot-com bust, 8 years of growth until, you know, the Great Recession of 08. It was like an 8 to 10 year window. It goes every 2 years since the pandemic, guys. And we are swinging the pendulum back to a candidate's job market. Let's take really quick a look at the next slide, the offer acceptance ratio. It's a really important statistic. This is what we measure when a candidate receives an offer first or is it the second offer they receive or the third plus offer they receive? And up until around last quarter, a lot of candidates were only getting one offer, right? But you could see in Q3 things got a little bit more competitive, but you could see in Q4 of last year, it was still a 75% likelihood that if you were the first offer a candidate received, that they were likely to accept that offer. Go look at 2022, because that's where we're headed next. We're headed back to that sort of ratio. Maybe not quite as exacerbated because it was the Great Resignation and remote in office, all the turnover, right? It may not be this excessive, but even if it goes from what has been 80, 65, 62, even if it goes down towards 50, that's a big difference in how important being first matters. And it's not going to have a lot more value because everyone's going to start moving faster. So for the next 60 to 90 days, being first and being fast gives you competitive advantage that leads to greater offer acceptance likelihood. But this market will heat up again, and we'll start seeing numbers like we've seen in 2022. I believe by the second and third quarter of this year, it will be so competitive. There will be one project manager for every 4 ediscovery project manager jobs available, and probably 1 analyst for every 9 analyst jobs that are available, because we have a talent drought at the bottom of our ecosystem, which is a whole other conversation. But I just want to draw it to it because it's a weird metric. So I wanted to explain it, and I also wanted to say, be fast now. Now is the most important time to be fast, because it may not matter if you're fast. You may just always lose if you're not fast in the future, versus having competitive advantage now. All right, let's go back to trends.
I wanted to ask you a question here on
Yeah.
the increase in ESI jobs. Now you're saying 3x growth in what amounts to basically 5 or 6 weeks, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you see that number going higher yet as we move
Yes.
through the year?
The reason it's going to go higher is because a lot of the people who accepted jobs in the last 2 weeks of January and the first week of February, the first week of February is the best week my business has had in almost 2 years. So there are going to be a lot of people resigning in the end of February. Those resignations haven't all happened yet. So that hasn't triggered the musical chair effect, which is going to occur, which is going to create an acceleration of jobs headed into March. Now, legal week has also moved. It used to be at the end of January. I prefer it at the end of January, because when you go to legal week, people give out jobs. That's what happens. It's a job fair, right? For us, for everybody there.
Among other things.
Among other things, but it triggers the job market. So this event is now going to happen at the end of March, which is going to trigger even more hiring going into April. That's going to have the momentum of hiring from the first quarter. So I expect the second and third quarter to be pretty explosive in terms of the volume of opportunities, and the speed of turnover will increase, creating more opportunities. Everyone's been running lean for 2 years, man. Everyone's been running lean, and they can't run lean anymore if they want to grow their businesses. They have to hire.
Okay, bullet 3.
All right. This one's great because we have the most demonstrative example of this on our webinar with us today. There's a shift happening in the corporate side of the business, and it's related to a lot of things, not the least of which is innovation, generative AI, but it's also aligning with individuals rather than brands. And let's go to that slide. There's a quote here from my top 10 article. You might have seen it in Legal Tech News. If you haven't, we're going to post the link to it. You can go look at it. But in this quote here of mine, which I won't reread to you, there's a link also to an HBR article about the new rainmakers in the AmLaw 200. And we've got one of them on the call today. And what makes Rose, I think, so special is a million things, but not the least of which is this realigning of what the skill sets are that corporations need from their outside counsel as it relates to e-discovery, which are not necessarily the same skill sets they needed 5 years ago, much less 5 months ago, potentially. And we're going to go into that in just a moment. I'm going to have Rose break down her favorites. Let's go to it now. The skill sets. Thank you, MT. This is what we're seeing, and I'd be curious to hear, Rose, what jumps out at you on this list as what is being driven in terms of a need for new skill sets in the ecosystem of e-discovery professionals, driven by the corporate stakeholders, who are sort of the bottom line here, right?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things that happen. So first, myself and others in the industry, including Mike, Jared, but leaders have really tried to change the narrative with respect to your e-discovery professional, right? Like in the past, they were seen as less than, or, you know, hey, there might not be as important, but we flipped the script, right? We are showing corporations how valuable your e-discovery personnel are and the folks that you partner with. I think second is we've done a really good job building the story with the baby associates that are now becoming your corporate in-house counsel that are making key decisions. And so why that's important is they were the ones trying to figure out how to deal with e-discovery in the new world, right? So they have a better understanding of like what it takes to actually execute a document review, a document collection, a document production in this new age of technology. And so therefore you're seeing a drive in corporate America, corporate legal departments really understanding that having technical skills with like unique data sets that the business lines are developing, and now you've got to discover it. You really need somebody that can go in and talk to the business and say, hey, how do we actually extract this data? And if you have that skill set, you are massively important. You are massively in value to these corporations. And that's kind of like the shift that we're seeing.
I want to drill down even further and say that what we're seeing on the staffing side is specifically for those that have those, that for the last 2 years, they've cultivated those, they'll pay a premium. We've got a client right now that is working with us on an e-discovery attorney search. And yes, they've got to run review. Yes, they've got to know case law. Yes, they've got to negotiate TAR protocol. But I'll pay more money if they've got AIR experience or some other Gen AI experience. And Rose, talk to us a little bit about that specific skill set, the Gen AI piece, and what people need to think about or what they need to consume in order to start leveling up to compete for these jobs that will pay more money. And ultimately, it won't be paying more money as a premium. That'll have a 2 to 3 year window starting about 6 months ago. What it will become is you won't be able to compete without them eventually. We've seen that story before, right? Everyone will need to have a mass understanding of some basic Gen AI skill set. So where do we begin?
Well, I think relativity, AIR for review, for privilege, for case strategy are just the beginning. It's the stepping stone. I think that other Gen AI solutions it's going to be absolutely necessary that you understand the landscape and the market and where do you fit in, right? Are you going to be a prompt engineering expert? Are you going to be the human in the loop that is training the model? Because similar to technology assisted review, continuous active learning, it's machine learning, but now you have like the natural language processing element, right? So that's really cool. And I think you're going to get more buy-in because generative AI is available to anyone in the world and everyone in the world. And people are using it in their personal lives, people are using it in the business. And so it's different than continuous active learning and TAR because you're not having to try to explain what it is. People know what generative AI can do and they see it work in a very powerful way in their own life. And so now it's like, oh, wow, maybe we should apply this to different aspects of the legal industry and our operations and our legal operations. How do we leverage this generative AI stuff? And so I think it's a really important area for you to get a knowledge base in. And what I would do is, you know, we've got Legal Week coming up. You've got other conferences. Go to the Legal Week website and look at who is actually going to be pitching, promoting generative AI. Go look at their websites. What are they doing? How are they differentiating themselves from other? Like, that's how you become an expert. That's how you become someone that your clients can trust. It's like, you're not just saying, I know relativity AIR, but I know that relativity AIR is the right fit because of X, or maybe relativity AIR is not the right fit. Maybe it's ultimatum because this is what ultimatum can provide. Or maybe it's, you know, fill in the blank.
Yeah, but that fill in the blank is really important because it's a baseline way to establish credibility, particularly with your internal stakeholders at your current position, if you're looking to level up, or with external stakeholders who are interviewing you. It just as a quick example, we just had a candidate get, you know, like an innovation job inside a law firm, wasn't exclusive to eDiscovery. The only real tool experience they had was with HiQ. But this person could get on a call and say, "Whoa, no, look, I've demoed Harvey, and I've demoed Vincent, and I've taken a look at, eDiscovery AI, and I've played with AIR a little bit. I've also seen, XYZ tools and just to be able, they're able to talk about what those tools do, what part of the process they could be integrated in. Even if they don't have the skill set, you're already like 1 or 2 levels above probably 90% of the applicants who really want these jobs, but have not yet done, not even like learned something, just the curiosity to be able to speak the nomenclature of the technology renaissance players that, you know, hiring managers have heard of because they're demoing these technologies. They're getting called from their salespeople all day, every day, 7 days a week.
That's absolutely right. And 10 years ago, I was really trying to make sure that me and my team had a full understanding of the legal technology out there. I think we are in a new age where, like, I'll take 5 demos a week if it's generative AI and you're differentiating yourself and it helps me better understand. Like, that's where we are. It's that important to understand what's out there that you should take time to have a 30-minute demo with various discovery providers or generative AI technologies to see, okay, where can they fit in my legal operations if I'm an in-house legal ops person, or if I'm an in-house e-discovery at, you know, a law firm. Where should I be bringing this into my skill set so that I can help my clients? Clients,
Well,
they
let me
need
tell you,
help.
it's not just the clients though, Rose, right? It's the, you know, yes, clients potentially, if you're in-house, are focusing on or providing solutions to your end customers. But I think there's an angle here with AmLaw lawyers that has to be considered, which is this cost-benefit analysis. I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole because I want to get to the rest of our data and have time to take a few questions. Corporate clients, I think you would agree, Rose, want their outside counsel spend decreased, right? Nobody wants it increased. They want it decreased. So what is an interesting paradigm shift is how can we use generative AI and the right people at the right bill rates or flat fee models where we could actually decrease our outside counsel spend for our corporate clients, but increase our margins internally as a business. And that cost benefit analysis is one that has not been figured out uniformly across the AmLaw 200 and beyond. And it's created opportunity for boutiques to come in with unique pricing models that lower, you know, overall top line spend, but maybe increase profitability for their firms because they're pricing things differently. They're offering different kinds of services. And this is the ability to really impact the business. And I keep saying this, you know, and I know this is an e-discovery call, but I really harp on this with my privacy compliance professionals who are sort of waiting for a regulation to come along to drive demand for their skills. And it's not probably going to happen in the next 4 years. So you've got to think about business solutions that drive revenue, drive profitability, drive cost reduction in order to win the budget and the buy-in to get your tools and your people and all of it.
Absolutely on point with that. And I think that corporations, well, I know because I see it, their litigation budgets are being slashed, some in half, some by a third. And the ones that can come in and help figure out how to solve that challenge of, okay, where am I going to spend my money so that I can actually have the high value lawyers that I need to come in and handle my trial, right? I need to pay for that. So where am I going to how do I do that now that my budget's cut in half or by a third? Well, you're going to have to be very creative and start thinking about generative AI.
I love it. You don't have to give away all the goods, Rose. Let's quickly go back to the trends and we'll just wrap up there and then we'll go through a few more data points. Being first, we talked about that. Fully remote work is sort of all contract work right now. Most of the jobs are still leaning towards law firms, and law firms want people in the office at least 2 to 3 days a week. That's sort of the norm. Burnout is still the #1 motivator, but I think by the end of this week, when we start looking back and doing February's numbers and putting our March presentation, it's going to be compensation. People know there's opportunity. Opportunism is driving the marketplace, but you know, so is shift in responsibilities. People want these jobs that deal with generative AI. There's no shortage of people that want to do it. How many of them actually have the skills or have done the homework or can talk like they've done the homework remains to be seen. Vendor hiring has increased, but not to surpass law firm opportunity volume. And salaries jumped for everybody we placed between 10 and 20%. So that's a big shift from last year where I think the average was around 8. So the average for the last, month has been 15, is almost double. So people are definitely getting bigger increases in salary. It's because there's more jobs, more competition. We haven't started seeing the counter offer war happening yet, but I expect that that'll start rearing its head up again in the next couple of months.
I'm so happy to see that, because folks in our industry deserve to be paid more. I mean, we're incredibly talented and we bring so much value. So that is an amazing stat. And I want to help raise our profile so that that continues to grow.
Amen. All right, let's quickly see what data have we not covered here, MT? We got like 2 minutes. Yes, compensation. This is also good news, and it speaks to the compensation increases. We're seeing the range of jobs at 150 to 200 increase by 6% just from the end of last year through January. So a lot of people didn't fill the jobs they wanted to in December, November, and increased their salaries in order to fill those jobs. Those jobs aren't necessarily higher level jobs. They're the same jobs that were in the 100 to 150 range. It's just their salaries have gone up. Conversely, you could see here, we jumped, I think, from 10% to 15, almost a double increase in leadership opportunities north of 200. That's really significant.
Jared, this is across all opportunities, right?
Across all opportunities, correct. Correct. You could see that there is pretty much nothing that we're seeing below 100. There is not a lot of entry level. This is a problem we could talk about on another day, but we desperately need new people in the industry. And we need to find ways to indoctrinate them to the skill sets needed to accelerate quickly, because we're going to have a supply-demand problem in the next couple of quarters. Organizationally, you can see here law firms, still more jobs at law firms than anywhere else, but vendors are starting to hire more. We expect that the vendors will start to even out or surpass law firms by the end of the second quarter. It's just they're going to get too busy. Nothing, very, very little in corporate. Relative. Keep in mind, this is all relative to the volume of jobs in other verticals, but you can see here that law firms are still driving a lot of the marketplace demand. Salaries, very quickly here, you could see that middle market went up, and it went up 10 to 20%. If you've got 4+ years experience, you're probably commanding north of $150,000 a year, or could go get it if you change jobs. You can also see here, I think it's an interesting observation, that the salaries, we used to do this East, West, Midwest. We don't do that anymore. We're calling it first, second, and third tier, because it's becoming democratized, right? This hybrid work life that we've adopted, which is pretty much the norm, or the fully remote life, is sort of democratized salaries. And I draw attention to this because if there's any HR hiring managers out there that are looking around saying I should pay 40% less for somebody in Ohio than I should for somebody in New York, I'm telling you, you're never going to get that person in Ohio, because somebody in New York will hire that person in Ohio for more money. They're commanding that salary based on their experience. It has nothing to do with cost of living. Cost of living analysis is a terrible foot to put forward as an employer, as a way in which you diminish somebody's value. And that is how job seekers view it. And you're seeing here that it's becoming a democratized job market, regardless of.
Jared, just for our listeners, just break down first, second, and third tier real quick. What does that mean?
First tier would be New York, DC, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Second tier is
big city.
Big cities. Yeah. Second tier would be like Dallas, Boston, Kansas City actually is a big second tier market. Seattle. Third tier is your Sacramento's, Greenville, South Carolina, Tampa. Those areas would be third tier.
Perfect. Thanks.
You got it. I think we've got 2 minutes left. Here are the service provider salaries. You can see where they're going up is at the top end at client service manager. And again, this middle project manager, senior associate at 1 to 150 base is where most of the job opportunities are on the vendor side. And ESI sales staffing gone up. Governance leadership has gone up. A lot of the vendors now consult in information governance. We're seeing them uptick what they're willing to pay to get people to come in and manage those accounts. We've got a big red X on technician because we haven't placed somebody in a technician level for 12 months. Now, part of that is because people don't come to my organization for talent of that years of experience, let's call it, very often. But the ones that do haven't in a really long time, really since before the pandemic in a meaningful way. And what that means is we're missing a generation of talent, guys. It means everybody wants people with 4+ years experience. There's very little opportunity to get in, and you need to kind of get 2 to 3 years experience before you can really exponentiate that earning potential and move into the next tier of compensation. I think we got one last slide. Well, we don't have to cover direct hire. There's more contract staffing out there than there used to be. A lot of this is because vendors are hiring contractors to keep their valuations at a more profitable multiple. That's the short story. Yeah. But we do think it will increase. But there's a healthy amount of FTE in the e-discovery marketplace, which is not the same as the privacy and cybersecurity space, quite the opposite. So for all of you that, you know, have rosy eyes about moving into other verticals, don't ever forget, man, e-discovery always puts food on the table. It always has. It's always busy. Even in its lulls, it's always busy. And we desperately need more.
And never boring.
Never boring.
That's for sure.
This hasn't been boring. I think we're at the hour, Mike, so I can take a few questions if we have time.
I've got one question from early on, and I actually want to pose it to Rose, but Jared, feel free to weigh in. And that is, are there any concerns around with the new administration in DC, you know, halting things like Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and changes in policy that would potentially result in not as much work / litigation as we think?
I mean, it's an excellent question. I mean, based on my experience, I've been doing this for 22 years. Anytime you have a change in administration, it doesn't matter which way, you see a significant increase in either litigation, whether that's private litigation, right? You may see an increase in DOJ investigations. You may see an increase in state regulation. Again, I think that's going to be a key driver here is
Exactly.
right. So I think it's an excellent question, but I just feel at the moment, at least for the near future, the next 6 to 7 months, you're going to see an increase in litigation. So what does that mean? You're going to see an increase in needs a year from now when the discovery really starts to get hot and heavy for those cases. So we're already seeing an uptick in a need for ESI talent. Is only going to continue to increase.
I think whatever we lose to FCPA, we'll gain in employment litigation.
times 10. I mean, really, like, you know, that for me, yes, I agree with Rose. And it's a good transition into our guest for next month will be the incredible Kelly Twigger, who's going to bring us data on filings of cases related to e-discovery that exactly illustrate Rose's point, which is every new administration, we see a peak in litigation, but in every Republican administration, it's exacerbated. And in my opinion, based on the culture of Trumpism, we're all going to start suing each other. I'm experiencing it in my business. So are other people. People are going to solve their problems by suing each other because that's the leader's way of solving his problems. And this is not a judgment call. It's just history, right? This is how Trump has done things.
It's history. It doesn't matter what side of the line you're on.
It doesn't matter what side of the line you're on. Both sides have to go through the discovery process, which is good for business and good for our industry. Let's use this window of opportunity to accelerate our value with our employers and for our employers to be able to accelerate our value.
Well, and I'll just say you should all tune in for Kelly Twigger. She's phenomenal. What an amazing presentation. I'm going to be sure to join. So awesome. She's one of my favorite people.
Yes. All right. And with that, we will wrap for this month. Thank you, Jared, and everybody on the True team. Thank you, Chrissy, on the ACEDS side. Thank you, Rose, for being our special guest this week. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We'll see you again next month when we talk with Kelly Twigger. Thanks.